Arrival on Earth. Commander Xal'Voran of the Zorvath Empire stood rigidly in the observation bay of his warship, staring down at the blue-green world below. Earth, a primitive planet, or so he had been told. His mission was simple: observe, report, and determine if humanity's military prowess held any real threat to the Zorvath Empire. The High Council had laughed when the idea of human military power was suggested. They believed humans were nothing more than a loud, brash species. Ambitious, yes, but ultimately undisciplined and unworthy of concern. But still, after their rapid expansion in the galactic frontier and a few unfortunate skirmishes with Zorvath patrols, it was deemed necessary to assess their true capabilities. Xal'Voran had assumed this assignment would be a waste of time, but as the ship descended, he began to sense something unsettling. The humans had given him permission to land at West Point Prime, their most prestigious military academy. And yet, there were no grand diplomatic escorts, no extravagant ceremonies to greet him, only a single human waiting on the landing pad. He stepped out of his craft, his deep red ceremonial armor catching the sunlight. The human before him was old, weathered, his face carved with the scars of war. His uniform bore the name General Cole. His eyes, cold and calculating, studied Xal'Voran in a way that made the Zorvath commander uneasy. "Commander Xal'Voran," the human said, extending a hand. "Welcome to Earth." Xal'Voran hesitated. The Zorvath did not shake hands, they bowed. But this was human territory, and he had to respect their customs. He clasped the human's hand, finding the grip firm, too firm. A test of strength? A silent threat? He wasn't sure. Cole motioned for him to follow. "Let's get started." There was no small talk as they walked through the academy. No pleasantries. It was all business. Xal'Voran had visited countless military installations across the stars, but this one felt different. The walls were lined with banners showcasing historical battles. But unlike Zorvath academies that celebrated honor and tactics, these banners spoke of something else. Not victories, conquests. They stopped at a viewing platform overlooking a massive training field. Hundreds of human recruits were engaged in hand-to-hand combat, their movements quick and brutal. They didn't fight like soldiers seeking glory. They fought like predators focused on one thing: absolute dominance. "These are your elite?" Xal'Voran asked, crossing his arms. Cole shook his head. "No, these are standard infantry." Xal'Voran's mandibles clicked in surprise. Standard? That level of aggression would be reserved for shock troopers in the Zorvath ranks. Cole must have noticed his reaction because he smirked. "We don't train our soldiers to fight. We train them to win." The Zorvath prided themselves on structured combat, honorable engagements, and disciplined warfare. But there was no honor in what Xal'Voran was seeing. Humans fought with ruthless efficiency. Recruits didn't hesitate to disable their opponents in the most effective way possible, breaking limbs, crushing throats, even feinting injury to lure an opponent into a trap. Xal'Voran turned to the general. "There is no honor in deception." Cole's smile faded. "Honor?" He leaned in slightly, voice lowering. "Commander, the galaxy doesn't reward honor. It rewards survivors." Xal'Voran found himself at a loss for words. He had expected arrogance, maybe even hostility. But there was no bravado in Cole's voice, only certainty. They moved through the training facility, past rooms filled with advanced combat simulations, drone warfare tactics, and psychological conditioning sessions. Xal'Voran noted the lack of hesitation in the recruits' eyes. The Zorvath trained their warriors for discipline and duty. Humans? Humans were forging something else entirely. They stopped before a reinforced door. Cole gestured toward it. "Want to see what real killers look like?" The door slid open, revealing an underground chamber where a dozen soldiers stood silently, clad in black armor that absorbed the light around them. Their faces were unreadable behind their visors, but even without seeing their eyes, Xal'Voran felt their gaze pierce through him. "The Ghost Division," Cole said. "One squad of these soldiers can eliminate an entire battalion before breakfast." Xal'Voran felt a cold shiver run down his spine. These were not warriors. These were something else, something far worse. For the first time in his career, he he felt something unfamiliar creeping into his mind. Fear, the brutality of human warfare. Commander Xal'Voran had witnessed war across the galaxy. He had seen Zorvath warships reduce planets to rubble, watched as warriors clashed in honorable combat, and studied the strategies of a dozen civilizations. But never had he seen anything like this. General Cole led him into a darkened room where a massive hollow table displayed a tactical simulation. The title read, The Siege of Caesarea Prime. Xal'Voran recognized the name immediately. It had been a brutal war, one where humanity had faced the dominant Krull dominion. The Krull were stronger than us, Cole said, his voice neutral. More advanced, bigger fleet, more soldiers. They should have crushed us. Xal'Voran nodded. That much was true. The Krull dominion had been a warrior species for millennia. Their conquest spanned half the galaxy before humans even left their solar system. By all logic, the Krull should have annihilated Earth's forces. But they hadn't. The simulation began. Xal'Voran watched as Krull forces overwhelmed human colonies in the early days of the war. Their fleet was massive, their warriors relentless. It was the kind of war the Zorvath understood, clashes of honor, strength against strength. Then everything changed. Xal'Voran watched as humans abandoned their defensive lines and vanished. Cities were evacuated, supply lines abandoned. It looked like a retreat. It wasn't, Cole said. It was a trap. The Krull moved in to claim their new territory. For a full month, there was no resistance. No human fleet. No soldiers. Just silence. Then the killing started. Xal'Voran watched in stunned silence as Krull warships exploded from the inside. Human infiltrators had snuck aboard. Entire command crews were slaughtered in their sleep. On the ground, Krull garrisons were wiped out overnight, their throats slit in their own barracks. Supply depots burned. Transports carrying reinforcements were hijacked and sent back full of corpses. Xal'Voran's mandibles clicked uneasily. That is dishonorable. Cole exhaled through his nose, an expression Xal'Voran had learned was human amusement. Honor doesn't win wars, Commander. Victory does. The simulation continued. The Krull, enraged by human tactics, began deploying more forces to the planet. That was their mistake. Xal'Voran leaned in as he saw thousands of Krull warriors advancing into human-occupied cities. He expected to see street battles, urban combat. Instead, the cities exploded. The humans had rigged entire cities with traps, bombs, and chemical dispersal agents. Xal'Voran's eyes widened. They sacrificed their own cities? Cole nodded. The Krull thought we would fight like everyone else. Hold the line, push back, negotiate terms. He shook his head. We don't do that. If you invade our worlds, we make them worthless to you. We don't fight for honor. We fight to erase our enemies. The Krull war machine fell apart in just 2 months. Their warriors were paralyzed by fear, refusing to move without triple-checking every corridor, every starship, every rations crate. Their supply chains collapsed. Their generals refused to sleep. Then came the final blow. The simulation zoomed out, revealing the Krull homeworld. A massive fleet of human warships surrounded it. But instead of engaging in a traditional siege, the humans deployed something different. Bioweapons. Not to wipe the Krull out. No, that would have been too simple. Instead, the humans engineered a virus that made Krull unable to sleep. Xal'Voran felt his stomach churn as he watched the results. Within 4 weeks, the Krull descended into madness. Their warriors, unable to rest, turned on each other. Their civilians collapsed in the streets. Their leaders begged for surrender. The war had ended without a single direct battle in the final phase. The humans had broken the Krull without even engaging them. The simulation ended, and silence filled the room. Xal'Voran turned to Cole, feeling a sense of unease deep in his bones. That is not war. That is annihilation. Cole stared at him, his expression unreadable. War is about one thing, Commander. His eyes darkened. Survival. The art of psychological warfare. Commander Xal'Voran sat rigidly in his seat, his mind still reeling from the horrifying tactics humans had employed against the Krull Dominion. He had always believed that war was brutal but honorable, a clash of strength and strategy. Yet what he had just witnessed was something else entirely. It was monstrous. General Cole, unbothered by Xal'Voran's discomfort, gestured for him to follow. The two left the simulation room and stepped into a vast chamber with dark metal walls lined with screens. The air hummed with unseen energy, and the room pulsed with an eerie glow from countless data displays. Soldiers moved efficiently through the area, tapping commands into consoles. "This," Cole said, motioning to the chamber, "is where we break our enemies before the first shot is even fired." Xal'Voran's mandibles twitched. "Elaborate." Cole smirked. "You ever hear of the Varlock War?" Xal'Voran shook his head. "Of course not," Cole chuckled. "Because we wiped them out before they could even start." He gestured toward one of the massive screens, and an image of a grotesque, multi-limbed species appeared. The Varlock had been warlords of the Tenebrous Expanse, known for their ruthless conquest of weaker races. They had a reputation for terrorizing civilizations into submission before launching their invasions. "They thought they could do the same to us," Cole continued. "They sent messages, boasts of their might, told us we had one solar cycle to surrender." Xal'Voran clicked his mandibles in disapproval. "A foolish strategy. It only gives your enemy time to prepare." Cole's smirk widened. "Exactly." The screen shifted, showing intercepted Varlock communications. Their war councils, their internal strategy meetings, everything had been monitored, manipulated, and controlled. "We planted false intelligence into their network," Cole explained. "Made them think we had superweapons. Told them we had alliances that didn't exist. We even faked entire human defectors, prisoners we let escape so they could spread misinformation." Xal'Voran felt a creeping sense of unease. The screen changed again. Footage of Varlock warships destroying each other. "We turned their leadership against itself. Some thought we were weak, others thought we were invincible. Paranoia spread like wildfire. Assassinations, purges, mutinies. Within 6 months, the Varlock were too busy killing each other to fight us." Xal'Voran's claws dug into his chair. "You never even fought them?" Cole shook his head. "Never needed to. Their empire collapsed from within. When their homeworld finally called for peace, we bombed their capital into dust anyway, just to send a message." Xal'Voran couldn't contain his disgust. "That is not war. That is manipulation. Cowardice." Cole's smirk vanished. His eyes hardened. "You don't get it, do you?" His voice was quiet, yet carried a weight of certainty. "War isn't about glory. It isn't about honor. It's about winning." He stepped closer, his presence suddenly oppressive. "Do you think your enemies care about honor? The Krull? The Varlock? Even your own Zorvath Empire?" Cole scoffed. "The moment you show weakness, they will tear you apart." Xal'Voran wanted to argue, to say that the Zorvath did not fight like this, that they had rules, honor, discipline. But a chilling thought crept into his mind. What if that was why they were losing? Cole turned back to the screens. "Humans fight differently because we learned something long ago. Fear is the greatest weapon in war. It shatters armies before they even engage. It makes strong men hesitate, makes leaders second-guess their orders. And once you break their minds..." He tapped the control panel. The screens changed to show alien soldiers, dozens of species, surrendering without a fight. Entire battalions dropping their weapons, falling to their knees, begging for mercy. Cole's voice was calm. "Once you break them here," he tapped his head, "you don't even have to fight." Xal'Voran had thought himself prepared for anything. He had seen planetary bombardments, had fought in wars where millions died. But this was something else. A war fought not with weapons, but with fear itself. And for the first time in his life, Xal'Voran wondered if his people were truly ready for what was coming. The horrifying truth. Commander Xal'Voran sat in silence as the human general led him through the final corridor of the military academy. He had seen enough. More than enough. His mind was a storm of contradictions. His warrior's heart burned with outrage. Yet his strategic mind couldn't deny what he had witnessed. The humans were not just warriors. They were something else. The corridor opened into a dimly lit room. At first, Xal'Voran thought it was empty, but as his compound eyes adjusted, he noticed rows of what looked like prison cells. No, not quite. The occupants weren't chained. They sat in sterile white chairs, motionless, their faces slack, their eyes vacant. Prisoners of war? Xal'Voran asked, his voice tight. General Cole shook his head. No, former enemies. Xal'Voran's mandibles twitched. Former. Cole walked over to a console and pressed a button. One of the seated individuals, a massive, reptilian Krull warrior, suddenly twitched. Its yellow eyes flickered unfocused. Then, to Xal'Voran's horror, it slowly turned toward him with an eerie, empty expression. Who are you? Cole asked. The Krull's voice was dull, monotone. I am a soldier of the Krull Dominion. Cole leaned forward. What is your purpose? I serve humanity, the Krull replied without hesitation. Xal'Voran recoiled. What have you done? Cole turned toward him. Neural realignment. Psychological warfare, taken to the final step. He gestured toward the Krull. We don't just defeat our enemies, Commander. We remake them. Xal'Voran felt his stomach churn. You brainwash them? Cole sighed, as if explaining something obvious. You call it brainwashing. We call it rehabilitation. He gestured toward the room. Every species we've fought, every empire that's challenged us, they don't just lose. They become part of us. No rebellions, no resistance, just integration. Xal'Voran shook his head. This was beyond cruelty, beyond war. This is monstrous. Cole's expression darkened. Is it? He stepped closer, his piercing eyes locking onto Xal'Voran's. Tell me, Commander, what happens when your people conquer a world? Do you let the natives remain in power? Do you allow them to rebuild, to seek revenge? Xal'Voran hesitated. We pacify them. Remove threats. Cole smirked. Exactly. And when that fails, you exterminate them. Xal'Voran flinched. The Zorvath had done exactly that to rebellious worlds. Cole gestured toward the Krull. We don't kill them. We don't wipe them out. We give them a future, one where they serve a greater purpose. Xal'Voran turned away, trying to suppress the nausea rising within him. And if they refuse? Cole's voice was quiet but firm. They don't. Xal'Voran exhaled shakily. He had come to this academy expecting to understand humanity's strength. Instead, he had uncovered something far worse. This wasn't just warfare. This was domination at a level no species had ever achieved. Cole clapped a hand on his shoulder. You understand now, don't you? His voice was almost gentle. This is why we win. Why we always win. Our enemies don't just lose. They become us. Xal'Voran's breath was unsteady. His mind screamed to reject what he had seen. But deep inside, a colder truth settled in. The Zorvath Empire was already doomed. He had to warn them, had to make them understand. But as he turned toward the exit, Cole spoke again, his voice casual yet laced with something dangerous. One last thing, Commander. Xal'Voran paused. You've seen too much to leave unchanged. The doors behind him slid shut, and suddenly, he realized he was never meant to leave at all.